When a hunter catches a glimpse of an enormous black bear, he stops at nothing to pursue the Bruin even as it consumes his life over the next 3 seasons. But the bear is clever. It rarely retraces its footsteps, making it nearly impossible for the hunter to predict where it will show up next. One thing is for sure, he is in for the hunt of his life. "39-year-old Brian Melvin had been on a bear hunt for 3 years. He was an avid hunter who lived in New Jersey. His weapon of choice was a bow and arrow. It felt more natural than any gun, and some say there is more skill involved. Whilst he was on a late-season deer hunt back in 2021, he spotted an enormous black bear. He knew then and there that he had to harvest him, and soon after it became an obsession of his. New Jersey seemed to be a hotspot for large bears. Just 4 years earlier in 2020, hunter Jeff Malillo made headlines when he shot and killed a world record-breaking black bear. Jeff made the shot with his bow and was surprised when the bear weighed in at 700 pounds with a skull length of more than 23 inches. It was an incredible hunt, but surprisingly, the record wouldn't last long. Brian Melvin began baiting the area, but the bear never visited the same spot twice. It was as though he knew Brian was onto him, and he was clever not to make a mistake. Whenever Brian set up an area to lure the bear close, the bear would disappear, only to reappear in a completely different location. For Brian, this was all part of the game. It was part of the excitement. Tracking and hunting something so clever was different from taking down any deer before. Brian was in it for the long haul. What made things more challenging for the hunter was that the bear kept on moving from state land to private land. So Brian had to do a lot of door-to-door knocking to gain permission to hunt on the private land. A year into his quest, and the bear had gained a reputation in the area. Most people he asked permission from were only too pleased that he was in pursuit of the Bruin. It was destroying people's backyards, ruining outdoor furniture, ripping jacuzzi covers apart, and even chasing both people and dogs into their homes. People feared that one day the bear would cause a fatality. Brian set up cameras in 25 to 30 different spots. He worked strategically, covering bear country inch by inch, mile by mile. But just when he caught a glimpse of the bear on one of his cameras, it would vanish for 6 months. But by tracking the bear over the course of 3 seasons, Brian began to understand his movement patterns. They weren't random movements. The bear had its favorite feeding spots and favorite beds. It roamed mostly in a 5-mile radius. At first, Brian's bait was hit and miss with the bear. Sometimes he would take it, other times he wouldn't. Brian discovered that this particular bear was far more partial to sweets than to meat. Initially, Brian baited 10 different sites, but he got that down to just 6. By setting up the wildlife cameras, Brian found out that the bear mostly took the bait at around 4 a.m. With all the information Brian had gathered over the past 3 years, it was finally showtime, but a few more things stood in his way. Bear hunting in New Jersey is a very controversial topic. Many people are anti-hunters, and it was banned by the state governor back in 2018. But in 2022, following a sharp increase in human bear incidents and a rise in the black bear population, the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife's Fish and Game Council voted unanimously to reinstate black bear hunting. It didn't come without its strict laws, though. 1. Hunters cannot kill a black bear. 2. Weighing less than 75 pounds. 3. Accompanied by cubs. 4. Within 100 yards of a baited area. On top of that, Brian only had a few days in which to make his once-in-a-lifetime shot. The first segment of the hunting season ran from October 14th to October 19th, with just the first 3 days open, only to bow hunters, and the second 3 days also open to muzzle loaders. The second segment was open to shotguns and muzzle loaders, and ran for 6 days in early December. By now, Brian wasn't the only hunter on the lookout for the massive bear. He had significant competition and would be gutted if another hunter got there first after all his hard work over the past 3 years. As the hunting season approached, Brian knew he had done all the groundwork. He knew the area the bear would be in. He had baited one of the sites ready, and he had obtained his license in advance. So, on the morning of October 15th, Brian set himself up in his stand and waited. He had with him a Hoyt Vector Turbo compound bow. This model is known for its lightweight and compact design. The Vector Turbo features a sleek aerodynamic profile that enhances maneuverability in the field. It typically boasts high arrow speeds and comes with adjustable draw lengths and draw weights. Brian opted for 535-grain Victory Extorsion arrows, which are relatively heavy. Heavier arrows can provide better penetration and energy transfer on impact, making them effective for hunting large game. And finally, Brian used Sever 2.0 broadheads. These are mechanical broadheads, meaning they expand upon impact. This feature helps create a larger wound channel, increasing the chances of a quick, humane kill. The bear wandered towards the bait as Brian had predicted. He had set his stand up 200 yards from the bait, in accordance with the law, and anticipated that the bear would walk back along the trail just 20 yards from where Brian was hiding. But the bear had other ideas. It did backtrack along the route Brian had expected, but a bit further away. It moved along around 45 yards from the stand. But Brian knew this was his best chance. He drew back his arrow and stared down the line. In that moment, the bear was slightly turned away from him. It would be a quartering away shot, with the animal's body angled so that its rear was facing the hunter at about a 45-degree angle. This is often a prime shot. It means that the arrow or bullet can penetrate the animal behind its last rib, often penetrating the heart and lungs. It is less likely to strike bone, offers a larger target area, and will exit by the opposite shoulder, and ensures a quick kill. Brian held his breath as he took aim, then he released the arrow, and it flew into the animal. The bear lurched and ran away into the trees. Brian immediately called his friend to help him track the bear. Together they followed the blood trail left by the injured animal. It was a dangerous situation to be, on the path of a massive, wounded black bear. The flecks of dark red blood led the two men up towards the top of a cliff. There they found the bear. It was lying in its bed, gravely wounded but still alive. Brian didn't hesitate. He quickly raised his bow one more time and fired it straight into the animal. The bear breathed its last breath and fell silent. The two men walked up to inspect it more closely. They were shocked at just how enormous it was. Brian knew that most hunters would take the specimen straight to the check station to record its size and weight officially, but it was hot, and Brian was concerned the meat would spoil. So, he gutted the bear then and there before hauling it back to the check station. It proved to be the right decision. At the station, there was so much attention surrounding the size of the animal that the weighing and processing took a lot longer than normal. On the scales, the bear weighed in at 770.5 pounds field-dressed weight, but officials believed that it would have weighed 900 pounds live. This was considerably bigger than the previous record using any weapon, which was 825 pounds. Of course, having secured such an enormous, record-breaking bear, news traveled far and wide. And the response to his kill wasn't all positive. Brian received death threats from people who were anti-hunting. Although he found these shocking, Brian said that he respected other people's views and wanted everyone to know that nothing on the bear went to waste.